Welcome to Season 4 of My Wife the Dietitian, a fun, evidence-based weekly podcast about nutrition and healthy living. On today's show, we're joined by dietitian Dana Dose. We're talking about healthy family nutrition and discuss everything from picky eating to diet culture language. Dana shares some great strategies to help you create a happy, healthy family mealtime. Stick around for this fun and informative episode. Enjoying the show? You can help others find it and enjoy it too by giving us a 5-star rating or review. If you feel like reaching out to us with a question or comment, you can send us an email at mywifetherd@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit our website at mywifethedietitian.com, as well as our social media pages. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Enjoy the show. Welcome to My Wife the Dietitian. Hello, Sandra.
Hey, Rob.
How's it going?
I'm excited today.
Yes, we have a new guest joining us today.
We do. Dietitian Dana Dose from the Family Nutrition Pro.
She is the Family Nutrition Pro.
Yeah, she sure is. What a dynamic interview we had, and it was a great conversation.
Yeah, lots of kind of aha moments in this, I found.
Yeah.
You know, like some really great ideas that she shared, some really good strategies. She deals with families a lot and sharing a lot of strategies for the different things that you encounter with family meals and the issues around that, and healthy eating, healthy communication around, you know, diet culture, body image, you know, how to talk and not talk at the table about your food, and this all sorts of things like that that we all encounter. So it's good to hear some, in her case, firsthand strategies, because she practices this stuff with her family at home. She's got young kids as well, and she'll share that with us, those stories. So
plus she's been a dietitian for 16 years and in the pediatric realm for the last 8 years. So, and she has her own online community to support parents with kids from infants to teens.
Mm-hmm. And even those adult children too can be a problem sometimes. So we discussed that a bit as well.
Oh yeah. There's so many good tidbits in this. And wow, it was just, we went from picky eating strategies and dealing with someone in the family who has an allergy or an intolerance to certain foods and how to navigate around that. And also, what about when parents are on diets or kind of involved in different diet trends, and how does that influence the kids and their own relationship with food and also their own self-image and body confidence? It's a really, really interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's lots to take in with this one, and we really encourage everyone to stick around and listen. So we will be right back with Dana Dose.
Today we have dietitian Dana Dose from the FamilyNutritionPro.com, and love that you're with us today with all of your wisdom, 8 years of experience as a dietitian in pediatrics and 16 years overall. So please, Dana, tell the listeners and tell us who you are and who you help in your work.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And I am located in Colorado. I work with people all over the United States, though, in one-to-one sessions. And I work with people all over the world with my, I have an online program that I'll tell you about in just a little bit. But
Awesome.
I work with families, and people come to me with all types of diagnoses and medical concerns and everything. Always when I'm working with them on any kind of medical nutrition therapy, my biggest goal for them is to connect with each other around food and to, I like to say, throw stress in the trash at mealtime and bring joy back to the table.
Perfect.
Did you say throw stress in the trash?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Throw stress in the trash. Yes. Great idea, because people are so busy and the meal times are rushed. I love that. Oh my gosh. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Stress. I mean, you can tell when a parent is stressed when they're preparing meals. It leads into stress at the dinner table if they're even eating together. Sometimes stress prevents families from eating together to begin with. And, it's so important that families sit together and relax and connect when they get to eat together, whatever meal that is, whatever time in the day that they get to do that as often as possible.
Do you get into why, or have you noticed trends as far as why people are getting stressed? Is there any sort of consistency from family to family about? I mean, obviously we're all busy. We all have kids running every which way and that sort of thing. So I can guess at what sort of the reasons are, but I don't know if you've sort of seen any trends or not.
Absolutely. I mean, I work with parents that have kids of all ages. So, starting in infancy, parents are just stressed about like doing it right. They want to start their kid off on the right track and their baby off on the right track. They get stressed about, and I think that perfectionism is a problem throughout childhood, throughout parenting. Parents always want to feed their child the most perfect foods. They want their children to eat what they deem as perfect eating. And that brings a lot of stress to the table. And then, like you mentioned, just the day-to-day stress that people encounter. People have to work really hard these days. And there's most families have two working parents. And even the ones that have, a parent that is able to be a parent, that's really hard work to do as well. So by the time it gets time, especially for dinner, it's like, we've all had a whole day. So it can be really difficult to kind of zen out and just, have peace at the mealtime.
Totally.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, that's the main question kids ask just after school. What's for dinner? And it just grates on mom's nerves, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm big on meal planning for that reason too, because I even hate asking myself what's for dinner, for the week, but it's so much easier when I can do it on Sundays and plan it out for the whole week. And then I don't have to think about it the whole rest of the time.
Smart. Oh, yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah, absolutely. And back when you said that all parents with kids of all ages, I just did a group last night, like a breastfeeding group with moms that are just about to have their babies and they, first time parents. And of course, I mean, it starts when you are having your first child and you're pregnant, you are wanting to breastfeed properly, or
Yep.
formula feed or whatever it is, but it starts from birth, these kind of worries that parents have about their kids. Like they want to make sure that they're fed right. And they want to make sure that, they're doing it right and they're being a good parent. And it's just, there's so much, I think with social media and just all the different messages out there, it just increases the bar in terms of perfectionism. And I feel I feel so bad for parents, especially new young parents. There's just so much going on and they're looking at trends from all over the world and what is, relevant, what's going to happen to me. And anyways, it's, I'm glad you mentioned that because definitely we are living in a modern day world that is full of daily stressors.
Yeah, the pressure too, and the judgment. I think there's a lot of judgment that happens from parents and non-parents, towards parents. That's the most heartbreaking thing to me. That's actually what I like to talk about a lot with parents of infants when we're talking about starting solids is there is no pressure to do this, the way that your neighbor did it or your friend did it, and you can do it your way. Making it your own. That just kind of removes that whole sense of of pressure to have your child's feeding experience look like everyone else's.
Yes, that is so, so true. I do have a question. How do parents navigate picky eating behavior in their child in the setting of the family dinner table?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it honestly needs to start, before the dinner table. But first I'll answer at the table what the best ways to handle it is really to not let it become the battle that it possibly could become. So, sit down at the table, and I'm actually just going to use my kid as an example because I do practice what I preach and I have one that's a little bit more selective, but sometimes he'll be like, I'm not eating that. And instead of me explaining why he should eat that, or I worked so hard on it and now you have to eat it. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Well, we're just here to chat. So come sit at the table and we'll, you can eat or not eat, whatever you want to do. And then we turn the conversation to something completely different. And 9 times out of 10, he ends up eating whatever it was that we served. And it's
Ooh, tricky. I love it.
No battle. And honestly, those are the times that we bust out our like conversation topics. We have a little jar of conversation topics, and I'm usually pretty, we do those for fun. Sometimes the kids will ask to do them at the table, but especially if there's any kind of like potential conflict, I'll be like, let's do the conversation topics. And then we can just really move on to light, fluffy conversation where we all get to participate and nobody's talking about the food. And it's not, we want to keep peace at the meal at mealtime.
Yeah.
So that's how I handle it and recommend handling it at the table, is to really just not give it any power.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you, Dana, that your son kind of like eventually comes around and eats the food? I mean, it tells me something. I'm just curious what it tells you.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think sometimes kids want the power struggle or the attention, or they, or maybe he's like, maybe he doesn't think he wants it to begin with. And maybe he's worried about like what we're going to think if he eats it or doesn't eat it or whatever, which would be funny because we have never made comments about that because I am who I am in the profession I'm in. But and so I think once he sees that it's like no big deal and that he's there at the table and he's hungry and he's just going to eat, like it becomes easier. I'm curious what your thoughts were about it. Well,
it's the fact that he came back and ate it tells me it's not about the food. It's not like he doesn't like the taste of it or he doesn't like that food, right? He just wants to be able to make the choice and not be told what to do.
Exactly.
Our kids are older now and they're at that kind of independent. Well, they're 19 and 22. They're at that independent age. And I remember being that age too. And I hated when my parents told me what to do because I thought that I knew everything and I didn't need anyone to tell me what to do. And I think, that starts when we're, I don't know, toddlers almost, right? And I think there's different stages of that kind of dynamic with your parents. And I think eating and food is one area where kids realize they have a bit of control and they want to maintain that. And so, I think just giving them that opportunity to choose for themselves if they're going to eat or not is obviously works like you sort of demonstrated in your family there. So,
and I think what Dano said too is that maybe, and I see this in other families, I don't know particularly in your situation, but maybe, they are seeking some attention because parents are so busy and they don't have a lot of attention or a lot of time for kids. And so even negative attention, like picky eating and like, no, I don't want that. No, it's their way of controlling the situation and getting some attention. So finally the parent is going to be like, oh, okay, like, what do you want? And, or whatever, but it's like, that's a good point. Cause you mentioned that you said maybe the power struggle, maybe, he wanted some attention. And I bet that it comes down to that a lot of the times with picky eating. Do you see that in your practice?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And to kind of build on that too, like that's why we do the conversation topics, because that gives them the chance to have a spotlight when they're actually around something positive. We just change it to like, okay, well, we're just here to connect and there's food in front of you if you want to eat it. And then they get the attention of like getting to answer this question. Like the questions sometimes they're a little deep, like tell me about somebody that was sad that you encountered today and what did you do about it? And sometimes they're really silly. Like, what if an alien landed on Earth and in our backyard? What would you do with them first? That kind of thing.
Sounds like a dad question.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it gives them a chance to like have that spotlight and like, it doesn't have to be negative at that point too. So, but yeah, I do see that in my practice a lot, and kids want to have that autonomy. And when families have had power struggles at the table for a long period of time, years, months or years, and it takes a while to unwind that. And so a lot of the families that I work with, when we're talking about, kind of stepping out of that picky eater zone, and I do want to say that picky eating is totally natural and it's part of development. So it's not that you're going to, cancel all the picky eating out. It's just how you handle it and how you reduce the struggles at the table that matters. But, kind of handling that with grace all comes back to like giving the child autonomy and allowing them to, decide whether they're going to eat or what they're going to eat from what you put in front of them. There's another trick that I like to use too, and that's worked really well for a lot of the families that I work with is either doing family style or buffet style, but the person cleaning up afterwards likes buffet style the best usually because there's not extra dishes. But child starts with an empty plate, right? So now they get to practice their autonomy by putting on their plate what they want from what has been made. Versus if you pre-plate the food and give them that, their only way to practice their autonomy is to say, no, I'm not going to eat that.
Oh, that's so interesting. I love that technique. Oh my gosh. My brain, my wheels are turning because I work in long-term care too. And I'm like, yeah, like it's kind of like a restaurant style where like the food is served, but at the same time, there's something to be said about the autonomy of like choosing what you want off the different dishes on the table, like a Thanksgiving dinner. Like I love that idea because that does provide some autonomy.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think we've suggested that before a few times too, when we're trying to find out what kids like and saying if you're at a buffet restaurant or where there's a salad bar or any kind of buffet style meal, watching what your kids sort of gravitate towards and because they are allowing themselves to make that choice. You're not telling them what to put on their plates and it's a good way to sort of find out what your kids like. And I think it's a great strategy.
Yeah.
I had a comment about the conversation box, and I love those topics and like the idea of a place where we have, cues for a conversation. It's funny though, when kids become teens or like preteens or teens, they don't want to talk. It's really hard to get anything out of them. Like if you ask questions, it's a definite, shut the door in your face. Like they do not want to be questioned. They want to talk on their terms when they want to. And even our older kids now, like it kind of keeps going because it's like they don't want to be questioned. Even Rob with his parents who they're in their 90s, when they start asking him questions, Rob, you'd rather talk about topics instead of like, answering questions. So it's a bit of a finesse around the communication around the dinner table too, right?
It's kind of it's like that evil circle because as a parent, you kind of want to know what's going on in your kid's life. And if they're not telling you, then you feel you have to ask questions. And then the kids are just like, oh, I hate answering questions all the time. And so it just kind of goes around and around. But I mean, our kids will eventually open up, like you said, on their own terms at their own time when they're ready. And then they'll just unload, which is great. But yeah, the day to day, it's tricky. It's a tricky thing to navigate.
I love the fact that you sat down with your son who's like 8, just turning 8. Mm-hmm. Yeah, was that the one who's kind of like more picky?
Yes. Yep.
I was kind of thinking because you said that you had a 7-year-old turning 8 and a 10-year-old, and when you said I kind of have one that's a little more picky, and just the experience, like the whole scenario you kind of painted out, I was like, oh, I bet it's the younger one, and I love the fact that he just started talking with you about whatever the topic was, and then he started eating his food without a fight. Like he just didn't even remember he didn't want it. It wasn't about that. It was about something else probably. So yeah, that's so cool that example that you told us.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I do love the conversation topics too, especially for older kids. A lot of the families I work with, I'll recommend they do this. And some of them, the older kids, like the teens, will get really excited about writing their own questions to put in the jar. So, and everyone gets to take turns. Like everyone answers the questions, right? When we do them, like we'll have usually the kids like to read the questions. So they'll alternate who gets to read the questions, but then all 4 of us answer the questions. So it's kind of nice because we're all participating and they don't even have to be about our day. Sometimes the conversation will turn into that, which is great. But I think for teens, it can work really well because it doesn't have to be about like their life or their friends or the things that they tend to want to be closed off about. So.
The other thing I'm realizing too is, and it's just kind of a tiny little detail, but the fact that the question is not necessarily coming from the parent, it's coming from the jar.
Yes.
It makes it feel like it's not the parent asking the question. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit more of an objective kind of it's a question for everyone from this jar on the table. So
Yes.
you feel a bit more obliged to answer it.
Yep. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's objective. It's not like a subjective, like someone asking a question that has a
Yeah.
vested interest in the answer, right? It's just like
Yes.
a random question. I love
Yeah.
that.
It ends up being like a little board game or something. That's a great
Yeah.
idea. I love it. You could even do that with adults. I mean, it's a great sort of conversation starter and icebreaker for, large gatherings and that sort of thing. It's, yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, they have in one restaurant in town here, they have like little Trivial Pursuit
Oh, yeah.
cards on the table. And I guess
Oh,
it's like,
yeah, I love that.
isn't that cool just to get people like thinking and talking
Mhm.
and just, yeah, it just makes it a bit more fun, like a game.
I love it. Yeah, I wanted to come back also because I know I mentioned before I'd come back to like managing picky eating, but like outside of the table because there's so much more to it than just like what do we do when we're at the table. And I think the rest of it gets lost a lot of times. But kind of thinking about like preventing picky eating or just like how do we come out of or come out of that like stress of picky eating. But there's so much more with like interacting with food and having positive experiences around food, engaging the kids in helping prepare the meals or some food for whatever is coming up and just like being around each other in the kitchen. And, if you have a garden, of course, like engaging the kids in gardening. But even if you don't have a garden, my family calls me, they say I have a black thumb and they like to laugh about that. I feel like everything I try to grow, but we do have a little basil plant in our kitchen and that we take basil from, which is so fun. We get our fresh basil for the things that we cook. So even just little things like that, but getting as close to the food where the food comes from, even if the closest you can get is the grocery store, like bringing the kids to the grocery store, as annoying as that is sometimes, it can be really helpful.
Right. Yeah.
I love that. Oh, yeah. It's all just about like getting back to basics because we're in such a busy world. And a lot of times, people are just having their granola bar, they're just eating out of a package. And it's kind of nice for kids to see like, where does food come from? Like, where did the ketchup originate? Oh, it came from tomatoes or, like it just kind of, you go back to where it originated. And it just helps, especially having a garden too. Like kids love that because then they actually see that they can reap the benefits of their, of their work of like planting the garden and then the peas start growing. And yeah, it's kind of like you feel a bit more like it's,
You're part of the process.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. I have another question here. What are some strategies to help provide balance and nutritional diversity to the whole family, especially if someone has a food intolerance or an allergy for food?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I mean, I think number one, you have to think about, is it an allergy where the person who is allergic can't be around the food, where it has to not be in the house, right? And then of course, we're looking at like, how do we keep the house safe for the person with the allergy and while also keeping diversity for everybody. And then in those extreme cases, I always say, encouraging for everybody to get those foods that they're not allergic to, but maybe the one member of the household is allergic to, seeking out, to be able to get those foods just so they can, if that's something they enjoy, getting those outside the house, of course. But, when it's one that where somebody's intolerant or there's not a concern about cross-contamination or, it's still allowed to be in the house, then, I think it's okay to make substitutions for the person that has the allergy or for the other people. It's, still trying to make this similar or same meal for everybody, but just with an alteration and recognizing like where it might be necessary and where not. So for example, somebody who's like gluten intolerant, there are some really great pastas that are out there. I personally love chickpea pasta. Nobody in our family is gluten intolerant, but I love chickpea pasta just for, the nutrient content and it tastes good. So that would be a really nutritious option for everybody, that everyone could just eat that pasta and that would be okay too. But if somebody's dealing with like multiple allergies and I work with a lot of families where, different people have different allergies within the family, and that can get really complicated. There's a recipe website that I love. It's the kidswithfoodallergies.org website. It's from the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America.
Okay.
And they have some great recipes on there, and you can kind of check the boxes on what allergies you have in your family, and then it'll pull up recipes.
Ooh, that's so practical. Thank you. Like, that's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. So just practicing with that, making sure that everyone's meeting their nutrient needs. And of course, plug to work with a dietitian, with any dietitian, just to make sure that nobody is missing out on specific nutrients because they themselves or somebody in the family has a food allergy. That's really critical too.
Another thing I'll mention while we're talking about it, we had an interview with Brian Bentow from Get Saucy. I don't know if you've seen his products, but they're all allergy free, like everything about it, because he's got issues with his diet and nutritional requirements and different allergies and whatnot. And so he's created this line of sauces that's like good to go for anybody. And so that's another thing that we'll add that to the show notes for anyone who's interested in checking that out. But fairly new on the market, I think, within the last year or so. But we've tried it. He sent us one of his jars of tikka masala. Was that what it was, Sandra?
Yeah, I think it was. It was good.
Yeah, and it was really good. So
I love that. It's great. I mean, there are so many products out there now for food allergies, and the labeling has gotten better, and so that makes it really helpful. But I think at the family table too, it's really important to not like single anyone out negatively, of course, right? So be like, oh, we can't have mac and cheese because Sue is allergic to dairy. So, but really making it like a family affair and making it fun to find recipes that are that use alternative ingredients and stuff.
Oh, totally. And I've actually recently have had a client who their sibling had a food allergy. And this client is, I think, in their 30s now. And basically she was a middle child too. So the whole like middle child syndrome, that she felt like invisible when it came to the food preferences, and she got no attention. But her sibling got all the attention around the family table because of the allergies that child had. So it's interesting how the family dynamics plays out around family meals and, picky eating. And I feel like in the last 28 years since I've become a dietitian, it's really grown. Like there's a lot of either picky eating behavior or allergies, intolerances. It feels like it's a way bigger issue than it used to be.
It does. And I don't know with the allergies and intolerances, I think, of course, like there's, genetics and everything, but I think with picky eating behaviors too, there is so much about parent behavior that, you can either get through the picky phase gracefully and like get through it. Right. And then sometimes when we kind of freak out about it, we get stuck in it for forever.
Yes. Well, sorry, keep going.
No, you go ahead.
I was ready to ask the third question because it comes right into what you're talking about here. And it's about what does the impact of parent dieting and food restriction in their own eating journey have on kids' body image and relationship with food as they grow up?
Yeah, and it's so closely linked. So, back to that whole idea of like parent pressure, parent perfection pressure. We'll make a little alliteration out of it. But that pressure for parents to be perfect and for their kids to eat perfectly. And so there's the fears and the pressures that go along with when they see their child not eating very much or, having selective eating, then it can blow up based on the parent's reaction. So it's this like cycle that happens. Meanwhile, you do have what the parents bring to the table, excuse the pun, but, with their dieting and their perception of, they need to be perfect too for their own, whatever they, grew up with. And so they're very closely linked. So as far as parent dieting, we know that dieting behaviors and self-disparaging comments that parents make directly impact the child and what they think about their own bodies. There was a study that was, I think this one was published this year, that I was just reading about it the other day, but it was talking about how they had they actually did like a designed study where they had moms with their kids that were 8 to 12 years old. I don't know if it was just girls or if it was girls and boys, but they had them looking at magazine images. And in the one group, they just had the parents not say anything about any bodies or anything like that. And then in the other group, they had the moms were told to make negative comments about their own bodies while they were looking through this magazine. And immediately after that, you know, they did that part of the study. And then immediately afterwards, the kids that were in the control group didn't have like any changes in their own body image, but the ones that did had some direct impact immediately from that experience. Wow. Their moms making a comment about their own body.
Wow.
Crazy.
So, yeah. And it also breaks my heart because I'm like, oh gosh, I hope that they had some like way to undo that from the kids that were exposed to that in the study.
No doubt.
Right? But yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. And we see it, you know, like in practice and then in studies too, that it has an impact. I always say too, like our kids are watching us, especially when we don't think they are. That's when they're listening to us the most. All the time, you know, it feels like we're talking to a brick wall when I'm talking to my kids, but they'll hear me say something that I didn't intend for them to hear, and they'll ask me about it later.
That's so true. Oh my gosh. It's like, it's not what you say, it's what you do. Cause they're watching you like you're a model and you don't even realize that you're on the spot, you're in the spotlight, but they are constantly watching everything you do. And so, you know, you might be talking about like not dieting and like, you know, just, you might be talking about one thing, but doing another, and kids see that and they soak it in.
Mm-hmm. They really do. And I've seen it, you know, in real life too. You know, kids like hear their parents say something about their own bodies, and then the kids will mirror that and they'll say like something similar about their own body, or they'll think that their parents said it about their body when it was their parents saying it about themselves, right? So we just need to be really careful about how we talk about food, how we talk about our bodies, especially in front of our kids when we think they're listening and when we don't think they're listening. And I always say that like it matters for you adults, for us adults too. Like it's actually really healthy to stop talking negatively about ourselves, even if we're just doing it for the only sake of, you know, not negatively impacting our kids. It actually can be a healthy thing for ourselves to avoid that as well. So, you know, when I'm working with parents of babies, I always tell them like right now, start catching yourself when you're, you know, if you're saying something negatively about yourself or, oh, I have to go on this diet because I want to lose some weight. Catch that now and get in the habit of not saying it out loud. It's just going to provide mental health benefits for all parties in the family.
I think part of the problem is even though you have good intentions about sort of changing your language around food and body image, a lot of times you don't realize you're using that language. It's something you've grown up with, and it's sayings that are just ingrained in your head, and they just roll off your tongue like without you thinking about what their deeper meaning is. Do you know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
So a lot of the times you don't even realize that how you're interacting and communicating is an issue.
It's so true. And it's in like food marketing too, you know, like sinfully delicious chocolate, you know, like why is it a sin to enjoy the chocolate?
Yeah. Exactly.
So, I mean, it's everywhere, and it is. And I actually, because I am who I am, I will point it out to my kids and I'll say, oh my gosh, that's crazy that says that on that box. Like, let's just say it's the sinfully delicious chocolate. I'm like, that's not a sin. Like enjoying chocolate is fun and it tastes great. Like it feels good to do that. And I'll explain to them, you know, in an age appropriate way. The conversation has changed over the years, but I will explain to them like what diet culture is. And now, especially with, you know, all of the like ads on TV for prescription medications. And then now, of course, with the weight loss medications and, you know, just kind of talking about the obsession of, you know, of being thin and skinny in our culture. It's a hard topic to broach with kids, but it's really important to bring awareness to it so that they know what they're seeing or what they're hearing when they hear it.
Absolutely.
I love that. I think you're going to bring out their critical thinking skills, like just as they hear their mom talking about this, like with a lot of different areas, like in the grocery store and looking at ads that come up. And it's like, that is so good because you're explaining things and you're, just saying, oh, and like, especially if you're emotionally offended or emotionally reacting, because kids really pick up on the emotions of parents, because that's like, it's more important to them when the parent is emotional. It's like, okay, this is an important thing to remember, in terms of in their brain. So I bet that, that is really going to be helpful for them in the, boy, that's something that we could educate other families about and parents, because I think that is so important. Just kind of critically thinking about the marketing and looking, like they want to sell products. That's the bottom line. Like, that's why they have these marketing slogans, and different, sinfully delicious. Like it sounds like, ooh, it's something that I shouldn't have, but I really want it, and it's just like, I love you flipped the script. You're like, well, it's actually fun and tastes great and I can have chocolate. It's not a sin. I'm not going to go, like it's not a bad thing to have it. So yeah, I love that because you're kind of like, deconstructing the message and like saying, hey, this isn't a good message. Like this is kind of, they're twisting things around so they can sell a product.
Exactly. And that's like, even though that then stems into like in the house, you'd be like, oh, I was bad today because I had donuts for breakfast. So I'm going to be good tonight and have a salad. And just even language like that is so common to hear people say.
So
and
oh my God,
that has a huge impact. Like, you were bad. Why is that bad? Think about a kid like, oh, okay, like my parents a bad person because they had a donut. Am I a bad person because I had donuts with them? And like, what are we doing here? So
oh, it's so black and white, like food, like good food, bad food. And in our culture, that's kind of how a lot of times food is like, especially with more and more of the marketing out there in the social media about like the perfect diet and like you got to the clean eating and you got to remove all these bad things. And it's like, it's so, confusing for people because it's like, well, I thought that was okay. Like I thought I could have a banana. I didn't realize it was so full of sugar, whatever, right? It's just like, oh my gosh, it's so hard. Like there's just so much marketing. There's so many different messages that really get confusing for people. And, they're raising their kids and, if they're confused, it's hard, the kids, it's an uphill battle, like the really feeding relationship. Oh my God.
Yeah. And I mean, think about like the modeling at the table too. I worked with a family one time where, one of the parents was intermittent fasting and their toddler was like really struggling with eating, like the physical act of eating. They were, they weren't into it and they weren't really like, just being at the table was difficult for the toddler. And once we got into it, we realized that like mom wasn't even like present, at mealtime. And then, dad was kind of there, but not really. And it's like, can we just like sit down and eat a meal together? Let's just like all three of you, like put some food on your plate together. And in that case, it was actually kind of hard for mom because, she was so ingrained in this perception that she needed to be on this diet. So that, working through that. And actually I get the pleasure of being able to work with parents as themselves as a patient, and then also helping them with their kids too. So we get to work through a lot of that, like dieting stuff that comes up for parents directly with the parent. And then also, we have appointments separately, like for the kid where we focus on the kid, but that's really where like I see the magic happening in families where parents struggle with dieting a lot.
Oh, wow, I love that.
What a great opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so powerful. And yeah, I mean, because it can change the trajectory of the eating relationship, as a child grows up. And it's so integral to their own feeling of self-worth and self-confidence and their body confidence, just being, comfortable in their own skin if they feel okay with who they are and their body size and shape, and it starts with food. And it's so interesting how pervasive diet culture is in our family homes and at the family dinner table, and just with friends too. Like it's such a topic of conversation. There's so many different diets around that people are on, and it's just like part of our culture. And it's like, it's sad, as a dietitian, and it's like you kind of just want to just say stop.
Yes, you do.
Can we
I do
talk
all the
about
time.
something else?
I do all the time. I will actually there have been times where we were at a social event and somebody will say something about the diet they're on, like any of those topics that you just mentioned. And when we get home or we're in the car, like privately, I'll say, oh, when so-and-so said that, like, what did you think about that? My kids are old enough now where we can talk about it, but I will call that out later, not in the moment, because that can be embarrassing for the person that said it. But I always will call it out to my kids when we're in private later. And I'll explain, I try not to give unrequested nutrition advice, so I wasn't going to say anything. My kids have actually asked me before, like, well, why didn't you tell them, Mom? Like, what? But it's so personal. It's emotional. You can't call people out in the middle of something like that. So,
totally. And you're not the food police. You're not when we had Madeline Berg on here about that book that she wrote, Oh My God, You Think I'm Fat, and other ways to, not to talk to your kids, and then to break the generational diet culture in families. And, it's so interesting. It's like, as dietitians, the kids are like, why didn't you say something? But it's like, well, I'm not the food police. Everybody has their own way of doing things. Like, one thing, it's hard because as a dietitian, I mean, there's so much, every food, it's body image, body size, body shape, your, nutrition, and the calories and the macronutrients and the vitamins and minerals. And, and there's so much in terms of kind of, as a dietitian, the realm that we can talk about. And it's just it's a little daunting sometimes because, like you said, friends and family say things, and then you're like, well, you're kind of thinking secretly, and then the kids ask you later. It's like, well, don't want to embarrass them in the moment, but So same thing in our house, Rob?
Oh, totally. Yeah. There's lots of different ideas out there now. And as your kids get older, they'll start bringing their own ideas home too, which, well, maybe your kids won't, because it sounds like they're fairly well educated around nutrition, but you never know. I mean, I thought our kids were too, but they still bring in their own things. And our son is 19 and goes to the gym all the time now and thinks all he needs to eat is protein. And he's like, what do you know? You guys don't, this is how I need to eat. And I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure Mom knows what she's talking about.
Right.
But, you're 19.
Mom, the dietitian.
Yeah. So, it's interesting, but it's just life's challenges, right?
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Well, and it's funny how everyone in the whole world thinks that they need to be a nutrition expert these days. Really all we need to do is just eat and enjoy our food and eat balanced food, kind of bring it back to the simple things.
The basics. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and that actually leads me to a question we ask all our listeners. And we want to eventually maybe do a road trip and come visit you in Colorado. And the question is, when you're making a meal for a potluck dinner, going out to see family and friends, what dish would you bring to the potluck?
And what dish will we eat when we come to visit you?
That's
where Sandra was.
I love that. Well, those are two different questions, actually.
Okay, that's awesome.
Two different answers. That's all good.
When we have friends over, we love smoking chicken wings because my husband has a smoker that he loves to make. So we're big, barbecue kind of fans. I grew up in Texas. That's what you will eat when you come to our house if you eat meat.
Okay, we're going soon, Rob. I want to get to Colorado.
No doubt.
But yeah, when we go to potlucks, we actually usually bring something that's fruit or vegetable based. Just because it's usually easier and, with life being crazy and, oftentimes there aren't enough of those things there. So if my little sous chef, my daughter, my 10-year-old is helping me, we usually do like fruit skewers with some kind of fun dip or like a white chocolate drizzle on it for fun. So if we're doing something a little bit more savory, we will bring like a caprese salad situation or caprese skewers too. Is fun.
Nice.
Mozzarella ball.
I love that. Oh, with the balsamic drizzled. Oh, it's so delicious. Oh my gosh.
So good. So easy.
Do you do them with the cherry tomatoes or like a like beefsteak tomatoes?
If we're doing skewers, I'll use the cherry tomatoes because they just go right on the skewer, which is kind of nice. And the little mozzarella balls. And we can use our basil from our little basil plant in our kitchen, which is fun, the balsamic glaze. But if we're doing like a plate full of it, or sometimes we'll just like mix it up in a bowl and then we'll chop it all up or do the slices if we're putting it on a plate. Depends on how fancy we want to look.
Totally.
And how much time you have.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's cool. And it sounds like your daughter likes getting in the kitchen with you.
Yes, she does. She's my little sous chef. I love cooking with her, and she's fun to have in there. She's wanted to be on like a cooking show before, so we've kind of actually looked into that. But yeah, so I'll keep y'all posted if she.
You could do a YouTube channel. You could just set up your own camera or like your own phone.
Because I feel like with the cooking competitions that they have with the kids, I don't think she likes to watch those, but I feel like she would feel like it was too much pressure in the moment. So yes. Let's do a little cooking YouTube channel and all the free time that we have.
What a fun project you guys could do. Mom and daughter cooking,
that would be.
Skewers, you could do like 5 series of like what to have on skewers or like how to barbecue or like just whatever. I mean, or whatever she loves to talk about and to create in the kitchen. Is she a baker?
She loves baking. She actually makes her new like signature thing that she can do totally all by herself is brownies from scratch. So she loves making those. She's attempted making cookies from scratch, but then I kind of had to step in a little bit on that one. So, but yeah, we're working on it. So
I love it.
She likes all the things. I was actually telling one of my patients the other day about this experience when she was little. I found this picture recently. She could barely stand up. She was leaning up against we had this little pull out thing in our cabinets in my previous kitchen. So she was leaning up against it and it had all of our spices in it. And like she had all the spices like on the floor. So I have this picture of it, but we used to let her play with all the herbs and spices, like the dried, the containers of the dried ones. And then I'd open them for her to smell. And now, like as she's gotten older, I'll let her like pick what herbs and spices to put on, to do a dry rub with on the chicken or what to put in the pasta. And it's so fun watching her be so adventurous because, most adults, I mean, even me, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to screw it up. And she just goes for it. And it always tastes great. So that's another fun way to engage kids.
Yeah. Be creative. You're not going to screw it up.
Nope.
You're going to find the next awesome thing is what's going to happen.
Yes, exactly.
Totally. And the risk, I love that she's like a risk taker in the kitchen. That's half the battle is just like saying, whatever, like I'm going to go for it. And if it doesn't turn out, whatever, I'll do it. I'll try different next time.
For sure.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much, Dana. I'm glad that we got to, just brainstorm with you about some of these picky eating situations and just the way that diet culture has like pervasively come into our homes, not just on our devices, but like in the conversation around the dinner table. And oh my gosh, we'll link a lot of things that we talked about in the show notes, like the kidswithfoodallergies.org for people to get those recipes. And also Dana at thefamilynutritionpro.com.
It's actually just thefamilynutritionpro.com.
Okay.
That's my main website. I also have my little online community that's really like open to anyone from anywhere. For parents of infants through, it'll go through preschool, and I have courses on there that people can access on their own time whenever they want. Just going through each of the stages in those early stages so they can set a really healthy foundation for eating and relationships with food and bodies. And people can find that at nourishedfoundations.com as well.
Great. That's amazing.
That is really awesome. Nourishfoundations.com. And then they just decide what age group or what program looks good for them.
Exactly. Yeah. And once they're in it, they have access to all the courses for all the ages. But yeah, when they go to that website, they'll be able to pick the age group and then so kind of see like how it will help them in that stage that they're in.
That is an awesome resource. Thank you so much. This is so good. Holy, because I have lots of clients, and we talk to friends with kids, and all these like topics that we discussed today are very relevant to a lot of people dealing with like picky eating behavior and just dealing with like how to navigate in our social media world with all the diet culture messaging and even just like the food marketing and the advertisements and like the language that like the sinfully delicious is a good example. Like, you know, how to talk to kids about critical thinking and like looking at advertisers and like what's the message here, and is it really, you know, is it more just to sell the product? So yeah, no, this has been awesome. Holy, do you have any other questions, Rob?
No, I think we covered the gamut today.
That's awesome.
Thank you both so much for having me. This has been a great conversation. I could talk for days on all of this.
Yeah.
We too. Us, yeah, absolutely. We'll get you back on the show sometime. We'll continue the conversation.
Great.
Yeah. Thanks again for joining us, Dana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Fun interview, hey?
Oh, great strategies too for picky eating.
You know what's amazing is we've had a few of these kind of episodes where we talk about picky eating and diet culture and all the sort of different things we discussed.
And family meals.
Yeah, family meals and different strategies for dealing with all those things. But everybody has different ideas in a good way. Like everyone brings new ideas to the table, like everyone we talk to. And it's amazing because part of the solution to a lot of these issues is education and sharing different ideas. And I love that we're able to do that with these guests that we're having.
Yeah, I know. We went from the spectrum of picky eating at the dinner table and kids with allergies, or someone at the dinner table with allergies or intolerances. So we brought in that
kind of aspect, that perspective, right?
Yeah. And
they're all challenges, right, that we face with our daily meals and reasons, things that sort of we need to figure out how to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And also talking about the Get Saucy episode that we did with Brian Bentow, because that was all about his journey with autoimmune disease and needing to have allergy-free food. So, yeah. And then also the whole thing about like body image and how parent dieting behavior can really influence the child's relationship to their own body and their own eating habits. And bringing in that episode we did with Madeline Berg, which was such a powerful episode too. So we'll have those linked in the show notes. But wow, Dana, that was really good. I really enjoyed hearing her perspective. Also just like raising two young kids, you know, like 8 or 7, almost 8, and a 10-year-old, and just different things they're doing in their kitchen and the way they manage family meals, and using those conversation cards is a great strategy. I love that.
I love that. Yeah. It sounds like they have a pretty healthy family dinner in their house. So
yeah, dynamics.
Yeah. It was nice that she was able to share that and yeah.
Yeah. Well, it makes it very authentic and relatable.
Totally. Exactly. Yeah. Right on. Well, thanks again to Dana for joining us today. If you want more information on her, check out the show notes. We'll link her website and other things we mentioned in the show notes there regarding Dana and what she's doing and where she's at.
And her online community, nourishfoundations.com, plus her website, thefamilynutritionpro.com.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so you can look for those in the show notes as well. If you want more information about what we are doing, we've got a website as well. It's mywifethedietitian.com. We've got a great blog on there, all sorts of different information. You can email us your questions too. If you are curious about anything or you want us to answer your question on the show, that is fine too. We're always interested in hearing listeners' questions, and usually we'll turn it into some sort of episode. We also have a weekly newsletter if you're interested in joining that. That's a free weekly newsletter. Lots of great information in there as well. Nutrition tips, recipes, updates, all that sort of stuff. So you can find a link for that on the website. You can also track us down on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Love hearing your comments there as well. And if you're liking the show, let us know. You can rate and review the show. Your comments are super helpful. Any kind of feedback you can give us is most welcome. Something else you can do that would be super helpful for us is sharing with a friend or two. Helps them find a new show, and it helps us get some new listeners on board here. So that would be most beneficial. And that is it for today. Thanks again to Dana for joining us. And we will be back on Wednesday with Nutrition Nuggets. So until then, have a fantastic week. Thanks for joining us today on My Wife the Dietitian. If you like what you heard, don't be shy. Leave us a comment or review, and be sure to share our podcast with your friends. If you'd like to hear more, hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media pages for updates, episode trailers, and other odds and ends. For more info and links on what we discussed on today's episode, check the show notes. We'll be back next week with another informative and fun-filled episode.